networks and mentors. So that would be how it is to go about reaching out to people to be your mentors and advisors, and how it is we can go about uh, identifying pockets that we may be missing, that we may want to search for a particular mentor and advisor in. So to kick off the beginning portion as a bit of a refresher and introduction, Giovanna, I'd leave it off to Giovanna, who wants to go through the Jamboard session that you guys worked on during the mentoring up discussion group.
Yeah, so thank you, Stephen. Sorry, I was also having technical issues. I don't know how to work Google Slides clearly, but we just wanted to take some time to go over some of the notes from the past workshop, because I thought that this exercise in particular was really, really illuminating in terms of where you guys are at right now, what your main needs are, and kind of shape what we want to do with you today in this peer mentoring session. So one of the questions that Fatima and Kermin ask you is, at the very beginning, what were you expecting to get out of today's sessions? And so answers clearly fell out into two groups. Some of you wanted to really know how to leverage the relationships that you already had, be them with your advisors or other mentors, to progress towards graduation and to complete your PhD. And then another group of you wanted to know how to expand those mentoring relationships. I think in terms of more specifically what role your research advisor plays for you right now, this was also really, I think, a very important conversation. I think it really showed that for a lot of you, your research advisors are really, facilitating your research, focusing on your science, your experiments, your research skills, and that's the primary role that they have. For a few of you, there's more psychosocial support. But on the other side of the spectrum, for some of you, your research advisor is less what we would call a mentor and more what we would call somebody that's, either in your way or a person whose relationship you have to navigate in order for you to accomplish your goal. So I think this post, a gatekeeper to my graduation, was really illuminating. And I just wanted to acknowledge that for a lot of us, a research advisor will never be a mentor. And for some of them, for many of us, a research advisor will have more of this transactional relationship where they, really are paying attention to what you're doing in the lab, but not much more. And these roles vary from time to time. And in many instances, somebody that might have been very supportive in the beginning will all of a sudden, for X or Y reasons, be kind of standing in the way. So hopefully the mentoring up workshop gave you some tools to start thinking about the transactional relationship of a research advisor position, and to really help you identify what it is that you need, that this person, this relationship, either has a role in, is standing in front of, or can help you facilitate that. And so one of the big things we're going to do today is think about that. What is the most pressing thing that you need to get done? And how is this relationship with your research advisor going to facilitate or not stand in the way of you getting that accomplished? How can you work with that person, leverage the relationship that's established, leverage other resources that you have around you to move forward to that goal? And then, and so this was another pretty illuminating exercise, a challenge that you're currently having with one of your mentors. And so, for many of you, that even that key role of scientific and research guidance is not being met. And so we want to work on you on that. With respect to the other side of things, you know, when you really want to move beyond that and expand your research networks and find other people to help you out, when the person that you're working with does not meet all that you're currently needing, then the other breakout exercise that we're going to be doing today relates to that. How do you start making relationships with other people to fill those gaps and meet those needs that this primary advisor that you've been tied to in many different ways, in many different dynamics? How can you move beyond that and get other people to help you out with those things that relationship is not necessarily working out with? And for many of you, you're already thinking about the next step and the relationships that you're going to be establishing for that next step. And so how do you start on the right foot with those new relationships? So we're going to be talking about those two things based kind of on the dynamics of the workshop. So I'll pass it on to Stephen to tell us a little bit about how the session is going to go.
All right, this is a quick refresher since this is our second peer mentoring discussion group. I wanted to give everyone a bit of a refresh on how it is we want these discussions to be going to, both on giving feedback and receiving feedback. So when you give feedback to your partner, remember to be constructive and specific, ask clarifying questions, explain your feedback and use examples to illustrate your point, and be supportive and honest. And on the opposite end, when you're receiving feedback, avoid getting defensive and taking something too personally. Ask for feedback on specific points, listen and take notes, and reflect on feedback and iterate on what it is that they have given you feedback on. So our first point of our two-part discussions will be on a transactional relationship. So as we mentioned before, for many of us, our mentor or advisor can seem like they're standing in the way of something that we want to accomplish. And really, instead of it seeming like they're helping you develop, it feels like you're in a relationship where they have something you want and you have something that they want. So the relationship feels very much like a give and take. And this can lead to a lot of difficulty. So we wanted to, in our first discussion group, to go about talking to possible questions that you may be having. As in, what it is that you need right now from your mentor or advisor, and how can you get it? So during your peer mentoring discussions, there are three big topics that we want to discuss. That being identifying what you need from your mentor advisor to either graduate or finish a project. How do the exchanges usually go between your mentor advisor, and to help brainstorm new ideas on how to approach your mentor or advisor on these things. So with this in mind, we will be going into our breakout rooms. Giovanna, do you want me to, can I set up the breakout rooms, or I don't think I can?
No, I have them set up. I just want to make sure that.
Could you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
Stephen.
Oh, yes.
Just want to take a screenshot of it. Thank you.
Yes, and I can post them in the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure that I have the right breakout rooms for everybody. I think I got it. Okay, so how many minutes do we have, Steven?
So this will be roughly 30. So we're going to be splitting up into our groups, and let's take roughly 30 minutes to us be in our separate groups, and then we'll come together and we'll ask if anyone wants to volunteer. And then we can, as a group, collectively brainstorm new ways to help with the transitional relationship dynamics. So we'll do 30 minutes for this first group.
Okay, so try to space it out so that you both have time to share from your own perspective. All right, I'll see you all soon.
All right. And then can I
We
broadcast?
can stop the recording.
Oh, yes. Meant of a group discussion. So if anyone, we have any volunteers to maybe talk as a group, what were the needs that you identified that you need from your mentor or advisor, and tell us how usually those exchanges go. And then what did you guys discuss in terms of brainstorming new ways to approach that relationship or really achieve most more than much more than you can currently in that relationship. So can we get any volunteers to share what their need was?
Sure, I can go.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so one of my needs for my advisor is basically like a plan for graduation and like how I could structure my science and like figuring out what publications would look like. Because yeah, I think I was telling Gabby, basically she's like, yeah, you can do this and then you can finish that project and finish that project. And that's not actually realistic if I want to graduate sooner than later. So yeah, one way we were talking about is like setting a meeting, like a kind of mentoring meeting. And the problem with my PI is she would never initiate it, or like if you don't have a really good structure to a meeting, we'll go straight into science or like very much off track. So yeah, one idea we had was setting up a meeting by like sending an email and like clarifying it's not a science meeting, but more like, okay, here's some strength. Like I want to talk about my long-term goals since I'm a senior science or senior grad student, and you know these are some things I want to work on, or like and get her opinions on what are things I could improve or that I have good strengths at, and kind of go from there into the talking more about long-term, and that would also include the need to graduate.
Yeah, thank you so much
That-
for sharing. And I definitely feel. Oh, sorry, Giovanna. Do you have something?
Oh, you go first, and then I'll
No,
go.
I was gonna say thank you for sharing. I feel like that's a very common issue that we always have. I always feel like PIs never think about when you need to graduate. Like their mind is always like, oh, like what's the next step? What's the next step? But never prioritizing your timeline. And everyone basically needs to try to maneuver that particular conversation in their own particular way and how the way they structure it. I know one of the advices, for example, that I was always given whenever to try to begin addressing that kind of issue always ended up being to, when you go to discuss your PI about graduating, giving them definitive timelines like, oh, I will be leaving by this date. Not when do you think I can leave, but I give them a hard deadline of, oh, so I'll be gone in less than a year. What do you need from me by then? I think it brings them down to like, okay, now we're in a timeline as opposed to making it feel more malleable. But I'm curious what everyone else like has as advice.
Yeah, I think that's really spot on. Is not leaving the things that I think Fatima really emphasizes clear communication in many different ways. And so, you know, having the conversations specifically about the timeline, and any chance you get, reminding them it's not up for consideration, it's not up for discussion. This is the date that I'm leaving. I think another thing to you guys can think about is what, in addition to this, you know, dyad interaction, one-on-one interaction with your mentor, are there other resources that you have around you that can help also communicate that message and keep the focus on that goal? So for example, if you have relationship with your thesis committee, maybe also sharing with them and asking them to, you know, if you feel comfortable asking them or others in your lab to just, you know, gently remind the person, oh yeah, you know, Julia's not going to be here in in a year and a half because she's planning on graduating by this time. So think about, it's not, you know, not just you on your own, but you have other people around you that can help. Anyone else want to share?
I can share. I was talking to Amanda, and Amanda had to left already because she have another things. But our talk turned more on kind of a rant from my part. And I think I was talking about how me and a lot of students here in the UPR are very disappointed at both the biology and the chemistry departments. In my case, I'm from the chemistry department, but I also work with the biology department.
Oh, can everyone still? Oh, okay, wasn't just me.
I don't know. Well, hopefully Saimara will come back. Oh, there you are,
Oh.
Saimara.
Okay, I don't know until what was the last thing you heard?
That biology and chemistry students are disappointed in their departments, but we missed the big why.
Oh, okay. It's in terms of our mentors, the professors in both departments. We feel like they're very disengaged from the students, from their work, from their roles as mentors, and I think my relationship with my advisor has turned into this. He's there if I want to meet. We can meet up, we can chat, and we have a great relationship. Like in terms of like an interpersonal relationship, we have a good dynamic. But it feels like, well, yeah, I don't know much about your project, your research per se, because it's not his area of expertise. So it's more like, okay, I trust whatever you want to do. And yeah, whatever I say sounds nice for him. And it's just like, okay, here's the money, just buy whatever you need to do the experiments. But I feel like I don't have that feedback in terms of research input, that brainstorming, that it often helps when you're like stuck at something, when you have problems with experiments and you just need to sit down and talk about that with mentor or with other mentors that you might have at your institution. The same goes for like the group meetings. It's all like journal clubs and people are just like discussing something they read on the paper, but we are really missing that culture of just sit down and talk about research, trying to help each other. There's not a lot of collaborations in between students or in between labs. So I think that everyone is like very individualistic at this time, and everybody feels like very alone in their stuff, and they lack that mentoring that is so important when you're dealing with the pressure of a PhD and you're trying to get to the end of your PhD. And it turns even more disappointing. Last week we had a thesis defense from someone from my lab, and she gave a 45-minute presentation and there were no questions, and nobody in the committee read her thesis, not even my advisor, which is her mentor too. Nobody read the thesis. And it's like, you spend all these years working and then you go there, you give this 45-minute presentation, and it's like they're not even listening to you. There's a room full of scientists and nobody has any questions, any curiosities, any interest in your research. And nobody even had the decency to sit down and read 3 pages of your thesis. So I think that's a good example of how disengaged our faculty it is right now. And I know we have had a lot of stuff over the last years, hurricanes and strikes and earthquakes but it's a lot of stuff for them, but for us too. And we're trying to finish a PhD here, and we feel like they just let us drifting in there. So this is my rant.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly frustrating and tiring. Like the amount of emotional, effort that you have to put into trying, asking for help, I think, and then not getting it. So what have you decided? What's your, what is it that the minimum viable product that you want your mentor to deliver, and then what are some ideas you have for getting the other things you need that it seems like, you know, you've tried several ways, your mentor is not able to provide you?
No, and I actually have, I mean, one mentor, my chemistry mentor, he's my main mentor. But I also have another mentor that is from the biology lab that I work in. And that one is even more disengaged than my actual mentor. So he's always canceling meetings. Maybe if I have like an issue and I try to just, I ask for a meeting, maybe I have to wait for like a month. But if it's something that I need to, like I'm working that week, I'm trying to optimize experiments, or I just want to discuss some data, I cannot wait a month because yeah, I'm not gonna be doing nothing for a month. So what I have been doing is I just reach out to people outside my institution, people who actually know about the research area that I'm working on, and I have like an off the record mentor that it has been the person that has been helping me a lot for the last year. And that person that is not even in Puerto Rico, is not from my institution, he's not even in my committee, nothing. I reached out to him because he was an author in a lot of papers that I read for my research. And he's the one that has been providing me, and he meets with me via Zoom, and we had chat and we brainstorm, and he gave me a lot of ideas, and I'm very thankful for him because I think without him I would have stopped. Like I would have left my PhD a lot of months ago. And I think that by now, that's the way that I envision in finishing my PhD. I think with his help and maybe even reaching out to other people that I see in papers that might know, might have a lot of more expertise in some areas and some techniques that I might be needing. I think that's the way to go, because I don't think by this point, if I want to graduate in no more than a year, that I'm gonna actually create a change in the culture we have right now in here in the institution.
No, that
Anybody
definitely sounds
wanna
like.
respond to that? Any fellows wanna respond to Saimara?
Absolutely. I'm going to take a stab at it because one, I live in Puerto Rico and I know what it is to have to deal with terrible internet and issues with power, while I have East Coast people who are not dealing with any of that and can do their work just fine. And I've had the fortune to work with people who are have patience. But in some occasions, I've seen my mentors look at me like, you sure you want to be there right now? And it's a little exhausting because I ask myself that all the time. But that said, I have also struggled with thinking about whether I want to, like how much I can really do to change what's going on in the current institution. And I have to tell you, I think you are doing the right thing. I think it's very smart to say, I can only do so much and I need to think about how I'm going to move forward. I think you are a rock star for reaching out to someone who's dealing with papers like in the same field as you. So congratulations for that idea. And in the same way, you have to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, I'm not going to be able to do anything more with this institution. So I need to move on to the next one or the next thing. And I feel the same way here about all the talk around DEI initiatives. Even though it's great, I'm glad that they're interested. I'm glad that they want to move, but the people who are going to stay here for a longer period of time are the ones that really need to take that role on. And I said so in a meeting. I said, this is unfortunately a transitory place for me and for all students. So I feel like we really need to think about what our roles should be within DEI initiatives and transformations at large in the university. So I applaud you for finding the resources that you need and for recognizing that the institution is not the place that you need to change. It is your own path that you need to take care of.
Yeah, you're right, and thank you for so much for those words. Yeah, you're right. I think we students have been trying to, we have like meetings and we've been trying, like talking a lot about all this stuff. But a lot of us got to the conclusion that, as sad as it is, we are not going to change the situation right now, and we need to move on. We just need to move on. And it is sad, but because a lot of us were trying to, I don't know, to prove that we can do as good as science in here as we can do in other places. And they make it so much hard every time. And it's very frustrating, and all of us feel a lot of love for our institution and our country and all of that. But it gets very tiring, and yeah, it gets to a point that you just need to move on, and we need to find what else is out there for us. And that might mean that the institution is gonna go down eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I this is a hard conversation, and I knew that we were gonna get to some of this based on the past workshop. There's some situations where you can, where you're really mentoring up, you can find a way to work in through a relationship where there's some trust and where you have some resources but in some cases you'll be faced with situations where that's not the case. You need to, and in those cases I think you definitely need to prioritize yourself and not compromise on yourself. So I agree completely with Angelica, and I also think that it's remarkable what you've been able to do in that environment, and I do think that at some point you have to draw a line in the sand and say, this is what I want to get out, what I want to accomplish. The current situation is not moving me towards this, so I need to find a way to move on to the next stage as efficiently and as painless as possible, so that I can, just either start anew or start something else. So that's why, we're trying to, with this exercise, to get you to think, what is that key critical thing that's at your grasp that you want to accomplish, and what is that advisor relationship? How is that either help, how can it facilitate that, or how can you mitigate any barriers that are in there? So that your situation also, Saimara, I think puts it, places out as well for the next breakout session, which is thinking about how to expand your networks of advice and mentoring when you're not finding that at home or in your lab. But before we do that, let me just share the screen again. So we want to do a little challenge, and we've set aside some special prizes to help incentivize putting into practice some of the lessons learned from our workshops. So for those of you, that are in a situation where your research advisor really can take an active step to helping you move forward, if you can, set up a meeting or have an exchange where you can present your goal and start the conversation about how they can help you or how they cannot stand in the way of you achieving that. If you can do that and email us some type of evidence that you did that, we have a special prize set aside for you that we'll be sending you in the mail. So just a challenge. It's optional, obviously. And it, it could be something as, in the case of Julia, for example, it could be like, setting up a meeting to talk about the timeline for graduation. In the case of Saimara, it can be, you know, talking to your separate mentor about, you know, more clear-cut expectations about how they can help you revise your research plans. It has to be tailored to what your current situation is and what you need, right? Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next exercise. Steven, do you wanna set it up?
Yes, and actually we discussed this previously, a little bit actually in the conversation we were just having, that sometimes you need to expand your network of mentors or advisors. And I hope everyone got to at least see the worksheet that we had sent out previously earlier today. And what that was mapping your mentors. So what it is it gives you a list of both professional and research career development that you would want your mentor or advisor being able to support your development. And it has a bunch of different criteria, a bunch of different things that you would want from a mentor or an advisor or someone to be able to support you with. And not one single mentor or advisor can really help you with all these things. So when you identify where it is that you can really prioritize, certain mentors or advisors can help you with this, how it is that you can fill in those gaps and find new mentors or advisors that can help fill in the parts that may be missing in your development. So for this next breakout room, we'll have to do really quick. I want you to think about how do you go about expanding your advising networks. And the three big questions that we want is, what type of advice or support do you really need? Where can you find mentors and how would you approach them? And how do you establish a productive relationship? So we'll be going off into breakout rooms again. This one will be relatively short because we're getting near the end of our time. We'll probably do, each of you can get like 5 minutes in your own breakout rooms. Then we'll come back and we can also talk about how it is people can give tips on how it is to go about expanding to your network to individuals you may have never even met before.
All right, I'm gonna open rooms and we'll see you in 10 minutes. It'll be a quick conversation.
Well, and stop the recording.
They're committed and they're really looking for advice.
You said something really cool about what mentorship even means, or like where to get mentors if you consider more people to be mentors. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Thais.
Yeah, so it was actually from our last session last month that it really helped me think about. So I had this impression of my mind that a mentor would be someone that would be like really like that personal relationship, like they would be like looking after me and like, you know, I'm their mentee, like, and a very structured and close relationship. And it was really helpful to just expand my view of mentor. And I think, and maybe I was also talking with you, Giovanna, when we had a one-on-one, to just like, you can just reach out to someone and have a coffee or have lunch and or a Zoom call, whatever, and talk about their career and just ask questions. And that can be a mentor, even though you don't have the title or don't have the mentor-mentee. So that really like it was a breakthrough for me, because I think I was really stuck into like, oh, I have to be part of, you know, a structured relationship. So actually, I was telling Angelica that today I had lunch with a new mentor or someone that I've just reached out. She's in my lab, but she's like a senior staff scientist, and it was really helpful to talk with her. And I have a couple other people too that I want to reach out to and just ask about their career trajectories and start to think, okay, I can consider them as mentors. Another example is also some people in the Office of Writing and Fellowships that my institution has. And whenever I had a fellowship or like I have to update my CV, I reached out to them and they're super helpful. And we had like a call and they gave me feedback on application. And I never thought, oh, these are mentors to me, because I thought that's, you know, they're part of the office and that's their job. But so yeah, I've also expanded to consider them like, no, these other people, they're also in my mentorship network as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we changed the slide from mentoring networks to networks of advice and support, because it has to start somewhere. A mentor is somebody that, you know, you've had a relationship where there's been time to build trust and all of that, but it starts with an interaction, a human exchange. And, you know, at the stage where you guys are at, you do need professional advice from multiple sources. And so kind of keeping your eyes out for people who could provide that for you, and starting to exercise that muscle of, you know, of reaching out and just opening a door for somebody to step in is an important, not just it's a skill. It's definitely a skill that you can practice and get better at. But it's also, I think, an important resource that you're going to have, you're going to be using. So that's great. I want to also say back to Marcos's point, you know, when you're looking for somebody that can communicate to you, I belong here, there's a space for me here, I can see myself here. You know, sometimes it's very hard to find at your institution, sometimes even in a scientific conference, because everything's so hectic and you're only attending certain, it might be hard, but that's where Twitter, which I hope doesn't get destroyed, but networks like Twitter, like LinkedIn, can be very helpful for just identifying people that, you know, seem to have the type of career you're interested in, seem to have backgrounds that you can identify with, seem to have personalities that you can vibe with. Start following them and, you know, try it out. Try messaging them, letting them know that they've been an inspiration, asking, you know, if there might be an opportunity to talk. I think those exchanges can be very helpful for that particular situation. I think that's where those social networks can be really useful.
And one thing I really wanted to add was that what I was going to say was I sympathize with the idea that definitely, like, as I've been developing, I always thought like, oh, when I'm thinking about a mentor, an advisor, in my mind was almost kind of like almost like an apprenticeship. Like they were just going to take me under their wing and show me a more concrete direction and how everything was supposed to be, how I just solve all the questions I possibly had on where I was supposed to be going to in life. It definitely changed to something where anyone that really I feel cares about my own development or my own trajectory that I want to have and the goals that I want to have is really your mentor. It can act as a mentor figure for anything that you want to, like. I have someone that's very close to me that I consider a mentor, and they aren't going in anywhere in the direction of the degree that the career that I want to head into, but I admire the way that they've balanced their life, and I strive to have something similar. So in a way, they're a mentor in terms of how it is that they look at their outlook on life and how they've been able to manage their priorities and staying true to themselves. So even like small things like that, I feel like I can get something from that, and really expanding my idea of like what is a mentor or advisor for what I need to help me grow and develop.
Guys, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, but I don't know if because we are short on time, I was gonna I guess I can just say, but if anyone wants to tell me later, because I did look into my National Research Mentorship Network, I think. I haven't reached out to anyone there because I felt like a little bit like I didn't know how effective it was through the website. So I just wanted to hear if anyone had reached out and established a mentorship through that platform. Or yeah, it can be for another time to talk about that too.
Yeah, maybe we can share on the WhatsApp some avenues that have been effective. But I would say, you know, try many different tactics. Sometimes things will work, not because it's not you, it's them. You know, it's their particular time doesn't match. So yeah, I think just not getting discouraged. So yes, we are at time. So I just want to leave the final challenge here. Again, we have some cool prizes for our challenges, for putting into practice some of the skills, just a little incentive to kind of get you over the activation energy. So reach out to somebody that you want to build a connection with for a specific purpose. The tool that Fatima and Kerming gave, I think, is really helpful because it really kind of helps break it down. What do you need? Who do you need for what? And so test it out, try it out, and you have nothing to lose. So our next session is December 6th. It's going to be a panel discussion with past YCA fellows about what they went through in finishing their PhD, how they prioritized all their stuff, what kind of considerations they had to take, what kind of challenges they faced, or what kind of lessons they learned. So we'll send out a link for you to kind of add your questions and think about it ahead of time. It'll also help them prepare. But it's going to be a very informal, familiar discussion with some people you might know and some new faces that you'll hopefully also count on your mentoring circle in the future. So have a great night, everybody. It was great to see you. We'll put together the playlist and send it over via WhatsApp.
Bye.
And thanks, Stephen, for all your technical help. I know it wasn't easy.
Yep.
Bye,
Yep.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Is there